Welcome to the Poetry Foundation's virtual event celebrating the 15th anniversary of Palabra Pura. My name is Alex, and I am the Building and Events Manager at the Poetry Foundation. I use he, him pronouns. I am a white, cis man with black glasses and black and blue dyed hair. I'm wearing a black shirt tonight, and I'm sitting at my desk with a bookshelf and a vase of flowers behind me. We would like to begin by recognizing that the Poetry Foundation building is situated on the occupied original homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa nations, among other indigenous nations. Indigenous people continue to live here today, and Chicago is home to one of the largest urban indigenous communities in the United States. While we are meeting on a virtual platform, it remains crucial that we recognize the stolen resources and land that enable the infrastructures of our connecting tonight. We gather, recognizing that some of us are settlers on colonized land, and that this land acknowledgement is one small part of disrupting and dismantling the colonial structures in which we are living. And finally, this is a relaxed virtual space. Feel free to do what you need for your body and mind to be more at ease. If that means eating a snack, hydrating, nursing, lying down, or stepping out to take a break, that's fine. Take a second now to make yourself 10% more comfortable. And now, I'd like to introduce Andrea Change from the Guild Literary Complex to introduce tonight's event.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Andrea Change. I'm the Executive Director with the Guild Literary Complex. I am she and her, an African-American woman, middle-aged, unfortunately. Well, it's a good thing. But anyway, the Guild Literary Complex is a 30-year-old grassroots literary arts organization that's been creating performance-based events in and around the Chicagoland area. We partner and collaborate with other community groups on issues of social and restorative justice, providing arts and advocacy programming for those marginalized voices. I want to take the time today to introduce you to someone who's been integral to the programming for our Palabra Pura programming over the last 15 seasons. Her name is Mary Hawley. She's going to be our Mistress of Affairs, and thank you so much, Mary, for doing this. Mary Hawley is a poet, fiction writer, and translator. She is the author of a poetry collection, Double Tongues, and co-translator of the bilingual anthology Shards of Light from Tiachucha Press. Her poems and short stories have appeared in many journals and anthologies, and she received in 2019 the Illinois Arts Council Literary Award. She's a volunteer interpreter for the National Immigrant Justice Center and a member of the Third Coast Translator Collective. A longtime supporter of the Guild Literary Complex, she's been the volunteer coordinator with Palabra Pura from almost since its inception. Thank you to Mary and all those poets who are joining us this evening. Mary Hawley.
Good evening y bienvenidos a todos. Gracias por estar con nosotros para festejar el 15º aniversario de Palabra Pura. I'm grateful to the Poetry Foundation for supporting our 15th anniversary celebration of Palabra Pura, the bilingual reading series of the Guild Literary Complex. From the beginning, Palabra Pura has been a creative space where writers can share their work in English, Español, Spanglish, o lo que sea. Esta noche les dará a ustedes la oportunidad de convivir con nosotros en este espacio bilingüe. I hope you enjoy what you hear and see. Tonight we'll hear the work of 4 poets who have been an important part of Palabra Pura: Francisco Aragón, Brenda Cárdenas, Miguel Marzana, and Joanny Vázquez Paz. Afterwards, we'll have an open discussion and a Q&A. Vamos a empezar con Francisco Aragón, el cofundador de Palabra Pura. I first met Francisco in 2005 and soon realized he was an expert at pulling together people and resources to make wonderful things happen, like Palabra Pura. Francisco es hijo de inmigrantes nicaragüenses. Sus libros incluyen After Rubén, Glow of Our Sweat y Puerta del Sol. También es editor de The Wind Shifts New Latino Poetry, y su obra ha aparecido en más de 20 antologías y varias revistas literarias. A native of San Francisco, California, Francisco is on the faculty of the University of Notre Dame's Institute for Latino Studies, where he teaches courses in Latinx poetry and creative writing, and directs their literary initiative, Letras Latinas. He has read his work at universities, bookstores, art galleries, the Dodge Poetry Festival, and the Split This Rock Poetry Festival, and he was a finalist for Split This Rock's Freedom Plow Award for Poetry and Activism. Es becario de Canto Mundo y miembro del Taller de Escritura Macondo. Before sharing his work, Francisco will offer a personal reflection on the early years of Palabra Pura from his perspective as a co-founder.
Greetings. My name is Francisco Aragon, and I'm coming to you from my living room in Arlington, Virginia. I'm wearing a navy blue polo shirt that has the Institute for Latino Studies insignia. And behind me is a beautiful print commemorating the New York City Public Library. When I joined the Institute for Latino Studies at the University of Notre Dame in 2003, I was charged with creating the Institute's literary initiative. The poet, Mary Hawley, recently reminded me that not long after that, we met on the Notre Dame campus at a faculty retirement celebration where she introduced me to Mike Pewican, board chair of the Guild Complex. Those initial conversations led to a lunch meeting with Mike and Guild Executive Director Ellen Wadey, who was an early mentor of mine in literary arts administration. One of Ellen's lasting lessons was the importance of collaborations and partnerships. And it was thanks to the Guild Complex that I had the honor and pleasure of being one of the co-founders of the Palabra Pura reading series, whose 15th anniversary we are celebrating today. It was 2006, and the mainstream literary landscape, in my view, wasn't a particularly representative space for Latinx poets. The Palabra Pura series, I believe, grew to be a pointed antidote to this situation, and I was thankful for the opportunity to cut my teeth as a literary curator in those days. My charge was to invite Latinx poets from outside of Chicago, while a local curation committee invited Chicago-based poets. Added to the mix was an open mic where bilingual presentations were welcomed and encouraged. The series was monthly, though we took a break in August and December. I was given, therefore, the opportunity to help shape seasons from 2006 through 2010. I'd like to give a personal shout out to our Master of Ceremonies during those years, who you'll be hearing from shortly, Johanny Vasquez Bas. Subsequently, the Palabra Pura series evolved into a format of monthly guest curators, spurred and shaped, it's my understanding, by Mary Hawley's vision and leadership. There's a wonderful scene in Spike Lee's transformative film from 1987, Do the Right Thing, in which a radio DJ launches into a celebratory roll call of African-American musical artists. It's in that spirit that I'd like to wind down these remarks with the roll call of my own, a selection of the out-of-town poets I invited during this first phase of Palabra Pura. Enjoy the sounds of these names. Rosa Alcalá, Maria Luisa Arroyo, Naomi Ayala, Richard Blanco, Brenda Cárdenas, Adrian Castro, Lorna D. Cervantes, Cynthia Cruz, Victor Hernandez Cruz, Silvia Curbelo, Joanne Diaz, Sandy Florian, Aracelis Nirme, Kevin A. Gonzalez, Ray Gonzalez, Rigoberto Gonzalez, Maurice Kilwing Guevara, Roberto Harrison, Tim Z. Hernandez, Juan Felipe Herrera, Tato Laviera, Ada Limon, Manuel Paul Lopez, Cheryl Luna, Valerie Martinez, Rita Maria Martinez, Maria Melendez, Orlando Ricardo Menes, Carolina Monsiváis, Juan J. Morales, John Murillo, Kristen Naka, Urayawan Noel, Luivette Resto, Tomas Riley, Linda Rodriguez, Levi Romero, Lydia Torres, Emma Trellis, Dan Vera, Emmanuel Javier. And now, I'd like to share with you 3 poems. The first is from my book, After Ruben, published last year with Red Hen Press. It's the last poem in section 2, which is probably the most political stretch of the collection. It was inspired by a multi-episode documentary that aired in the waning days of 1999. I've never read this poem in public, but in light of recent events, it seems like an apt time to share it. One of the poem's themes, especially in the beginning and the end, intimates that cults of personality are disastrous forms of governance. The Century. Episode 2 with Peter Jennings. Adolf, as a young man, was denied entry to art school. What could be worse than a bitter, mediocre artist with a plan? In the second segment, you see a physicist at 24, the moving picture a grainy gray. He nibbles a strawberry, sips a flute of kava, swings in his moments of free time a tennis racket, his stint at Los Alamos, intense, the Manhattan Project. Today, another face, captured, bruised, on Good Morning America. The screen says Lopez, and I see a trace of him, my brother at 17. Those postcards home from Camp Pendleton, the scribbled pride of his ass-kicking platoon. Reading them, I was following him, 10-year-old, as future soldier, like chanting, oblivious, the rich syllables of a slogan, a country that buffoons name. Last year, I was invited to contribute a piece to the British poetry journal, Magma, for a special section called Inspired, where a poet offers a poem that is inspired by another poet's work. The issue was guest edited by British Latinx literary activists Leo Boaks and Natalie Teitler. I decided to fashion a sprawling cento, which is to say, a poem made up of deliberately curated and deliberately ordered language. The piece is titled with Carmen, and it's dedicated to Carmen Jimenez Smith. Here we go. With Carmen, acento. And ages away from her story, she sang it, splatter of phantoms against the spray. When I was a girl, I thought clouds were God. I wanted to cup the moon's curve. I was light from the mouth, from every part of me. I was of the earth, or a scar in the earth, pouring through. Sometimes my heart bleeds so much I am a raisin, and the starry black is like the inside of a secret. Sometimes she hollowed out a sound like trembling, pointing to where her silvery heart smoldered. Her hair is pinned back in tufts. There's a mystery in that smile. I had once told myself a different story about us, layered over with more scar, then more wound. We're drunk. The words slip in and out like the ocean's salt, scraping of walls, skin on resistant skin, until our throats are dusty with the grit lingering in quiet, deep vowels. We circle the wound. All of us circle the wound, because imagine it's like a rose, trees, caverns, rocks, a gathering of cells, bloodied mortification and witness, voice boxes. Metiste la pata cuando abriste la boca, pero te lo digo with love. Real prayer woven in the threads to spread over my whole life. Phrase of thread meant to stitch shoes, instead stitch the tang of touching. This is our intimacy now. My nails trace the cracks we've made over the years, an ooze of new self. Nosotros, muffled by the clang of dishes and jokes and raw and hazy, but delicious. So imagine all of your bodily urges, bleeding, breathing, learning. I evoke a pink, vulnerable jelly, still pulse with the plasma of exchange. You have to like what time does. Each day I talk to the part, begging for wind so that my sound will echo 1,000 miles away. Once there was a ship powered by bones that flew in the air. The cosmos, the twine of our breaths into wind, into carbon. Our tongues make branches move. Carmen, they call out from across the sea. Have you made anything good with our outrage? And the new city rises from the bits of what? Mumbled indecency of the sweetest kind. Finally, I want to share a translation from the Spanish of a poem by Gerardo Diego. A contemporary of Lorca's, Diego was the poet from his cohort who first delved into and embraced the avant-garde, its various forms that were flourishing in Europe in the first third of the 20th century. The poem is from a book that was written in 1922 when Diego was 26 years old and living on a bungalow on the beach on the north coast of Spain. It's from a book titled Manual de Espumas, which I've translated as Handbook of Foams. This translation recently appeared in the online journal, The Cortland Review. The poem has a certain noir sensibility that I think you'll enjoy, hope you'll enjoy. Novel. The garden gate has crossed its arms. The wind barks in a grove of trunks. A passing car whisks away the sobs, calming down the lake. You could say the sun has made fun of the park, and here are 3 detectives looking into the abduction, dusting the piano keys for getaway prints. With every uncovered clue, a fake bird disappears into a building, and under intense questioning, a mute star stares down death. And on we go. The road never tires of departing and returning alongside hills. It's 5 in the afternoon. Water sprawls next to a stream, and a few miles away, spring. The moon rushes to get there first. Where are the lovers? City corners hardly said goodbye, see you tomorrow, when you saw the sudden night leap from an elbow, jutting, treacherous from a passing car. The clock on the tower enlarged its pupil, and confused cocks lose track of the added hour. There's a lump in every corner, and from the balcony hangs a lamp. With every step a passerby takes, the light yields and the sky darkens. At last, we've cornered the crook. A naive clock confesses to the murder. And in the folds of the sobbing curtains, the moon bursts with passion. The city sleeps in the usual places, and at the scene of the crime, the spooked streetlight gazes at the jailed tree. Thank you for spending this time with me.
I first met our next poet, Brenda Cardenas, in Chicago, and I was delighted to find out that, like me, she was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was sad, though, when soon after our meeting, she left Chicago and returned to Milwaukee, but her life and career have flourished there. Los libros y plaquettes de Brenda incluyen Boomerang, Bread of the Earth, The Last Colors con Roberto Harrison, Achiote Seeds, Semillas de Achiote con Cristina García, Emi Pérez y Gabriela Erandi Rico, y From the Tongues of Brick and Stone. También coeditó Resist Much, Obey Little, Inaugural Poems to the Resistance, y con Joanny Vázquez Paz, Between the Heart and the Land, Entre el Corazón y la Tierra, Latina Poets in the Midwest. Sus poemas han aparecido en muchas antologías y revistas literarias. Brenda co-taught the Letras Latinas workshop Pintura, Palabra, a project in Praxis. And she is Associate Professor of English at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. She has also served as the Poet Laureate of Milwaukee.
Buenas noches. My name is Brenda Cardenas. I'm a Chicana or Mexican American cisgender woman with dark brown hair and hazel eyes. I'm wearing a green blouse with matching green and cornflower blue beaded earrings and necklace. I'll be reading to you from my dining room table in the 1920s Milwaukee bungalow I just inherited from my closest aunt and uncle. I'm very happy to be celebrating the 15th anniversary of Palabra Pura with fellow poets, friends, and everyone tuning in. I've decided to read mostly brand new unpublished poems today, as I've been writing quite a bit during the pandemic. So I'm going to begin with a poem titled El futuro está hecho a mano, or The Future is Made by Hand. Imagine handmade subversion, community embracing liminal existences. Et sin sun san colibri acquiesces to air, su corazón flickering hints of hibiscus. Autumn grasps the wet hand of August, links arms with December's icy elbow as spliffs smoke swallowtails into dreams, where duende tiptoes up behind you, blows the fine hairs at the back of your neck, te abraza con sus suspiros. Presente, mi cielo. Imagine handmade community, knitting, hinging, sewing, knotting, gluing us together. And my next poem is titled Keys. My uncle and aunt left me 2 hands full of keys, some to lost padlocks, some so worn they no longer turn in locks that block me. One might let me into his mother's tavern or childhood farmhouse in the old country. Another, the scorching desert winds her parents crossed to this land of maples and pines. A few keys kept safe her treasures, not worth a dime. Plastic purses, ring with a blue glass stone, christening flowers, once pinned to the white dress her brother wore, 42 years before he burned beneath a Pontiac set aflame by the drunk who hit him in a perfect perpendicular. Letters written in her husband's mother tongue that no one left here can speak. Skeleton key for the cedar closet opens to 3 generations of handmade dresses, skirts, suits, tight in their plastic sheaths. And at the very back, her tiny wedding dress, pearls tinted gray like her hair on the pillow the night I couldn't find the key to her breath. I remember the strands as silver streaks across a white sky, keys to a door none of the living can see. And the third poem is an ekphrastic poem that is a part of a series that I've been working on called Cien Nombres para la Muerte, which is also the name of a series of drawings by the Mexican artist Eric Ricardo de Luna Genal. And that means 100 names for death. This poem was after 3 of the drawings, the one called La Jodida, the one called Las Huesos, and the one called La Cargona. So the poem is titled Las Jodidas, the screwed ones. We are bent from the loads we've carried, strapped to our bony backs, sacks of maíz, hierbas, frijoles, bundles of firewood, jerry jugs of precious agua. Each Saturday, we haul tall stacks of caged birds to the mercado to sell their captive songs, their laments, our heaviest burden. Hobble a mile in our ragged huaraches, holes in their tired tread soles. Follow us to the village of whispers where the only gritos belong to the wind, empty doorways grown over with weeds, our men's dusty boots waiting years for their return. You'll find no fish, no flores, no monedas, only sacrifices with their mouths full of mud and the dread of our itchy grins. Then tell us you would never risk wrapping your little lamb in a rebozo, grabbing your withered staff and heading north, devil sun, scorpion, migra be damned. You'd fly for the birds whose latches you could not unlock. You'd fly so the only satchel your daughter hoists on her shoulders is heavy with libros, lápices, y sueños. You'd fly, never believing they would wrest her from your back and lock her in a cage. And some of these poems I know are a bit sad. In 2018 and 2019, I lost my favorite aunt and uncle, my father and my little brother. So I've been in a period of grieving. And so some of the poems are responding to that. And this is one more, it's titled Brother, as in a salutation. And it begins with a line by the poet Robin Riegler. Brother, my pain is a cloud that might be saying goodbye. It waves its plump little hand and sails into blue. I imagine a fist pump and a wink. How could I refuse to laugh at its mischievous smirk, like trying not to burst into chortles when your lover cracks a stupid joke in the middle of a fight? After the first year, I began to wake without memory of missing your last words, because by the time I arrived, they had all flown north, in search of a cool lake breeze rustling between aspens, an eagle perched in the crown of the tallest tree on shore, knotty pine walls of the tiny room where we slept, three to a bed, comforted by dim yellow light shining through cracks and sounds of our parents, grandparents drinking beer and slapping cards down on the oilcloth just outside the drawn curtain we pretended was a door. And the next poem was published in a new anthology titled Grabbed, Poets and Writers on Sexual Assault, Empowerment, and Healing. The editors were Richard Blanco and Caridad Moro, Nikki Mustaski, and Elisa Albo. And it's just a wonderful book of essays, stories, poems. So I just want to thank the editors for putting it together. This is titled Sweet 16. Sweet 16 in patched Levi jeans and spaghetti strap tees, we walked a mile to meet the bad boys kicking back at the park. Newports nearly tumbling from their bottom lips as they flicked wheels to flint and waited for a spark. We strolled in with 6 packs of Pabst and Sass, asking for a joint and a motorcycle ride, secretly wishing for a date to the carnival or concert or next beer bash. But we barely popped the tops of our cans, had any chance to joke or flirt or speak of summer plans before dusk deepened to dark, before he pressed me against tree bark, tightened his vice of a body to mine, and grew 10 hands that grabbed everywhere, even the hair at the back of my head to stop my thrashing neck. By some dumb luck, he could not trap my 10-alarm screech, its siren rupturing his will. Still, I often wake straining and mute, knowing either he or the tree will swallow me if I cannot scream. And what of her, the one who breezed into the park with me that summer eve, all cherry lip gloss and glitter eyes, all cool facade melting on the inside, all sweet 16 with her firefly heart waiting to spark. My next poem is an ekphrastic poem written after a piece of graffiti art by the Los Angeles artist Chaz Bojorquez. And it's called Placa, Roll Call, which is also the name of the piece of art. It begins with an epigraph by the artist who said, "If the city was a body, graffiti would tell us where it hurts." And this block would shout, Nos diste un chingazo, cabrón. Mira esta cara rota, these baton cracked ribs, this black and blue street dizzy, con gente, Blades, Kiki, Larry, Snow, Enrique, Connie, Elton, King, David, Kelly, Jeff, Raton, Chaz. Los de aquí, los de abajo. This roll call won't be silenced, not by Glock, not by chokehold. This, our temple of runes, our tomb, its glyphic curve and flow, calligraphic code writ acrylic. This, our relic, our scroll unrolled in catacombs, our flecks of subtext still buzzing después de que vayamos con la pelona. Que lucha, loco. Ven, baile con nosotros to the aerosols maraca y hiss, al punk en español's furious sweat, hang your head out the window y dale un grito tan lleno de duende that it cracks the pavement, summons our dead to dinner, turn the tonal kaleidoscope, then pause, catch your breath so you don't miss the illegible moment where all the mystery lives. There, decipher that. And now on a lighter note, this poem is titled The Top 15 Reasons Mexicans Love Tortillas, and it's after Natalie Diaz's Top 10 Reasons, something about top 10 reasons top 10 reasons Indians are so great at basketball. Something to that effect is the title of hers. Top 15 Reasons Mexicans Love Tortillas. Because they are a meal as old as time itself. Because they are the spoon and fork rolled up in one. Because we can wipe our mouths with them when we run out of napkins. Because slapping the masa from hand to hand reminds us of playing patty cake with our babies, now too grown up for our silly games. Because we toss the store-bought ones directly on the gas burner and flip them quickly as a spark with our fingertips, no pots or pans necessary. Because when they hit the fire, little air pockets in the masa puff up with hope like hills in flat, endless deserts or bubblegum and balloons on our birthdays. Because they taste like the clouds of heaven, the nuns tell us we will sleep on if we learn to form our T's between our teeth with a sharp bite. If we wait until we are married to touch anyone's body or even our own below the neck. Because pools of butter melt in their valleys and run down our chins as we clutch them in one hand while we shoot hoops with the other. Because our mothers and grandmothers spend the whole day piling them in columns on their formica tabletops. Because our fathers tell us how they hated making tortilla deliveries from their coaster wagons when they were boys and abuela sold the delicacies to neighbors for a quarter per dozen. Because like one year to the next, they are circles. Because our eyes feast on golden wheat fields and our stories speak of yellow, blue, burgundy, brown, black kernels spilling from baskets before the corporate almighty outlawed all but one variety. Because cornrows are not only in our hair, but in our backyards. Because our bisabuelas dried the kernels, soaked them in lime and water, ground them in molcajetes bigger than our heads, worked the dough until small round cakes lay in their hands, because they started from scratch. And my last poem is a little love poem titled Good Boots for my husband, Roberto. It required good boots, waterproofed, laced and zipped, fur at the ankle, waffle sole, to walk 3 miles in 3 feet of snow, all the way to the lake without slush between toes. Because I could keep moving, see my breath, because hand-knit woolen caps act like good boots. I still hold your wolf's eyebrows, clear lake eyes in my snapshot of love. In snow to my knees, I knew I could winter with you. Thank you so much and happy anniversary to Palabra Pura. I hope you have a great night.
Yo conocí a Miguel Marzana en una noche de Palabra Pura. Miguel read a poem in the open mic and impressed everybody in the room. Soon he was a regular, and his work was included in the Palabra Pura anthology, Antología Amor, which was published by Miguel López Lemus and Pandora Lobo Estepario Press. Since then, Miguel Marzana has been a frequent curator for Palabra Pura. Es poeta y escritor boliviano, autor del poemario Descomposiciones, Aceite de un cielo, y su obra ha sido publicada en varias antologías como Poeta en Nueva York, Poetas de Tierra y Luna y Eterno, Antología Hispanoamericana de Cuento sobre Amor, y también en la revista Diálogo de DePaul University y en revistas virtuales dentro y fuera de Estados Unidos. His work has been translated into English, Quechua, and Catalan. Miguel currently studies at the Graham School of the University of Chicago. He coordinates the poetry and creative writing workshops of Contratiempo magazine and is a member of its editorial board.
Hola, mi nombre es Miguel Marzana. Hoy estaré leyendo 5 poemas en honor al aniversario de Palabra Pura. Soy un poeta boliviano, vivo en Chicago desde hace 15 años y para las personas que no nos pueden ver, les quiero decir que estoy en mi casa, estoy en mi escritorio, tengo los poemas delante mío y estoy listo para leerles. El primer poema que voy a leer se llama, es de mi libro Descomposiciones. El poema se titula Ojos cerrados. Vivir en blanco, entre los manteles de la soledad, morirse en lo absoluto, en la nada de la vida. Las clarividencias de bolsillo, como aves amaestradas, habrán de abatir y separar la mesa del contagio, su esqueleto líquido. Y de mi próximo libro, El cuerpo, que se publicará este año. Buscando un poema. Buscando un poema, soñé que estaba contigo. En una casa, en el cuarto más oscuro, desmantelando telarañas, cuando alguien llamó a la puerta y saliste corriendo, y el patio no era tu patio, ni el mío, y la casa tampoco era nuestra casa, y la luz no era la misma que afuera, cuando la seda impactada reverberó como ladrido. Fácil ver la levedad del mineral que sostenía, estando no en la oscuridad. No tiene sentido, dije. No es interpretable, dijiste. Alguien llamó y me pediste que salga para ver si era trino o penacho, aquel toquido que llamaba al otro lado de la puerta. Pero al otro lado no había otro lado, tampoco puerta, solamente un cuarto oscuro, un sonido, y de pronto estábamos entre tres. ¿Del mismo trabajo? No. No eres una voz, ni eres un poema. Eres ruido de los estertores. Al despertar sobrio, con el tráfico y el ruido de los trenes, al viajar entre los rascacielos o dentro del intestino de la Walker Drive, ¿qué es lo que te despierta? Tu café lleva tu nombre, el tren te abre la puerta, algunas manos se extienden ante tu presencia. Qué importantes opiniones, diría un poeta que no cabe en una puerta, pero parece que no entiendes. No eres una esperanza, no eres un signo que desciende, no eres el cielo trizado, ni la sonrisa de la bestia de la primavera que define la nube que baja diciendo que en algún momento habrá que dormirse del cansancio para levantarse y seguir buscando. Hey, te conozco. Recuerdo tus huesos como recuerdo la violencia que gritaba nuestros nombres cuando estábamos afuera, abatiendo estatuas y monumentos, invadidos de reproducciones, derribando la vida artificial. Hey, sé que quieres que desaparezca todo esto. Sé que quieres que desaparezcan el dolor y las heridas, los caminos tan largos y tal vez que hubiéramos estado más despiertos. No eres o soy. No eres. No eres. Los más oscuros. Publicado en la revista Contratiempo en el número 149, Voces Negras. Dame los más oscuros para ver el árbol atrapado en la mesa. Dame los más oscuros para ver tu sombra lejos del bestiario. Dame los más oscuros y todo eso que no sé decir del alma niña, como pantera oca, como yo niño, para el inserto del río y la furia de la noche. Dame los más oscuros para despegar el en vez del habitante que nunca se apaga. Dame los más oscuros para que sin poder leer el alma no se desconecte y amanezca oscurecida. Fauna en 5 sueños. Este es un poema que se incluyó en la antología de poesía sobre la pandemia y las circunstancias del encierro y el distanciamiento social, por Letras en la Frontera y la UNAM de San Antonio, Texas. Fauna en 5 sueños. Hay un código en las lenguas. Las puertas son las mismas vestigiales. He estado tan perdido que no recuerdo mi nombre o si fui libre alguna vez. Hay tantas cosas en el mundo que no entiendo y que no puedo explicar. Necesito que alguien me diga quién soy en este nudo de fuego. Libérate, ayuda a liberarme, libéranos. Ve con el silencio de los hombres, que tiemble la tierra donde se vacía la mañana del mundo y se desintegran nuestras palabras. Tal vez no comprendo tu dolor, solo sé que no va a terminar y al final de la marcha va a desfigurar su luz interior. Tocarás las piedras entenderás lo que nos quiebra el labio. Ve con el silencio dentro del ruido del silencio y desde la sangre que brota, verás que no se trata de lo que nos aleja. Dime si me amas. Ataré un poema alrededor de tu cuello para que sientas esto que llevo dentro y cuando avances como sombra, te desconozca el canto estrigiforme. Reconozco mi connotación ligera. Estoy condenado a morir libre y soñar y tomarte de la mano como si me quisieras, porque en la distancia de tus ojos hay un pájaro que no es para ese altar de piedra. Te vi escarbando mi saliva con tus cuerdas, los ojos incunables, pero leves. Ahí estabas, traficando la muerte bellísima que se funde con terror e inocencia, dividiendo los huesos de las lenguas y sus gentes. Ayer nos morimos sin saberlo, nos envenenaron con agua, prohibieron nuestras vidas, nos quitaron la cabeza y separaron nuestros cuerpos. Dime si me amas, sensible a la cuerda de tu cuello. Dime si me amas, he estado tan perdido. Dime si me amas estos días de nuestras vidas. Esa es la lectura escogida para hoy y dedicada a Palabra Pura. Gracias.
Joanny Vasquez Paz brought the heart and the sparkle to Palabra Pura during its first 5 years. From 2006 to 2010, she was the Palabra Pura MC, and she has returned frequently since then as a featured reader and curator. Joanny lights up a room with her warmth and humor, but her poems will haunt you with their beauty and sadness. Joanny was the winner of the 2018 Paz Prize for Poetry, given by the National Poetry Series in partnership with the Miami Book Fair. Su poemario, I Offer My Heart as a Target, Ofrezco mi corazón como una diana, fue publicado en una edición bilingüe por la editorial Akashic en 2019. Entre sus otros libros se encuentran Sagrada Familia, ganador del International Latino Book Award, Querido Voyeur, y Poemas Callejeros, Streetwise Poems. She and Brenda Cárdenas co-edited the anthology Between the Heart and the Land, Entre el Corazón y la Tierra, Latina Poets in the Midwest. Sus poemas y cuentos han sido publicados en las antologías City of Big Shoulders, Diáspora, narrativa breve en español de Estados Unidos, Ellas Cuentan, antología de crime fiction por latinoamericanas en Estados Unidos, The City Visible, Chicago Poetry for the New Century, y la antología de Palabra Pura, Cantología Amor, entre otras.
Hello. Feliz Año Nuevo. Happy 2021 to everybody. My name is Joanny Vasquez Paz. I was born in Puerto Rico, but I live in Chicago for many, many years now. Right now, you can see that I am in the Eiffel Tower, but I actually am in Tampa, Florida. I'm going to start with this poem. that is included in my book, Sagrada Familia. I wanted to dedicate this poem to my aunt who just passed this week from the COVID-19 virus. Y it's called Consejos de mi Madre, Extrema Unción, Advice from my Mother, Stream Auction. Cuando te duele el pecho, mija, mete los dedos hasta el fondo del pote de Vicks Vapor Rub y embadúrnate el cuello, la garganta, los senos, en la cuevita detrás de las orejas y en la punta de la nariz, ponte un chin chin. Pintarrajéate toda con esta crema milagrosa hasta que estés bien protegida y guarecida y no haya germen, ni mal de ojo, ni mal de amores que debilite tu fuerza y enmudezca tu voz. Úntate Vicks donde el ramalazo te castigue, donde la amargura te tuerza la sonrisa y el disgusto te arrugue la frente. Cuando la tos interrumpa tus palabras y la fiebre dibuje espejismos en tus ojos. Úntate Vicks en los golpes bajos de los falsos enemigos, en las manchas permanentes de las lágrimas y las cicatrices que las despedidas dejan en la piel. Cuando tambalees por los pies hinchados y el estómago se te retuerza de verdades dolorosas. Siente la energía de tu mano santa. Huele el aroma del eucalipto entrando por la nariz, el alcanfor y la menta perfumando el aire. Sube la cabeza, engorda el pecho, inhala fuerte y decidida. Descongestiona el camino obstruido, desinfecta los pensamientos mordaces y respira hondo y profundo hasta que olvides el dolor y la pena, igual que yo hago todos los días. I'm going to continue with a poem that I'm dedicated to the people of Humboldt Park in Chicago. This poem is very important to me because it has been included in a few anthologies about Chicago, and I think it's my lucky poem. And I'm going to read it in English, the English translation that I wrote, and it's called A World of Our Own, Un Mundo Nuestro. Between two flags we built the pass of an island exiled to memory. We put up colonial balconies and replaced the asphalt with paving stones, the parks with plazas, the supermarkets with colmados, American coffee with café yaucono, and hamburgers with steak jibaritos. We changed street names and words in Spanish, from desfile tu parada, from patio tu yarda, from alfombra tu carpeta, from mercado tu marqueta, because we are bilingual y podemos mezclarlas. We put flavor in the food, written in the music, murals on the walls, accents on the words, heat into the cold. We open botanicas, cultural centers, galleries, museums, restaurants, and anything else we needed so our children could learn their heritage of waves returned to shore mixed with the blood of three races. We built a world of our own between two flags, a neighborhood with well-known faces, familiar aromas and noises kept company by the rumble of the drum. Our homeland in exile that flows like a desert island in the deep and vast sea of the city of Chicago. My next poem is one of the hardest poems for me to read because it talks about a family secret that it took for me a long time to write about. My mother is a survivor. And I want to dedicate this to him. Hija de la violencia. Mi madre duerme con la carga de otra niña en sus costillas. No siente la primera hendidura, solo un temblor, una sacudida, un trueno, quizá. Como caído en un abismo, su cuerpo brinca cuando su alma regresa del país de los sueños. Espanta la realidad con el abanico incierto de las pestañas al vuelo. Pero la segunda estocada le asegura que las pesadillas estremecen menos que la mirada furibunda de mi padre. La piel de mi madre me protege, armadura endeble donde la tormenta me arrastra hasta el fondo. Si todo hubiera terminado allí, su vientre sería hoy mi tumba. Las voces que papá trajo de Corea le ordenan atacar una y otra vez. El estruendo de la guerra le persigue, disfrazando las súplicas, los gritos. Mi madre, 7 veces rota, se extingue en mi ombligo. Contra todo pronóstico, sobrevivimos, sin saber cómo ni por qué. Nacer fue no morir antes, vivir un milagro inexplicable. My next poem is also included in the book, Ofrezco mi corazón como una diana. I offer my heart as a target. And it's the poem that gives the title to the book. Ofrezco mi corazón como una diana. Si busco en cada hombre a mi padre, su locura certificada por doctores, la mirada nublada de estrategias de guerra, perdido los ojos en un campo de batalla, siguiendo órdenes de una voz sin dueño. Si permito al ejército de padres clonados empuñar el fusil mi dirección y les ofrezco mi corazón como una diana, para servirles obedientes como a mi procreador, pidiendo la bendición antes del tiro. Si busco quien llene de paso sus zapatos para que pisoteen mis alas de cristal, quien bienvenido siempre esté, pero no llegue. Y yo, con tanto amor, me sirvo de aperitivo en la cena. Cocino mis agallas, horneo un pastel de vísceras, empaco y sello las sobras no apetecidas para que recalienten mi dignidad cuando apetezcan. Si en cada hombre busco a mi padre, me temo que además de los pies planos, la piel trémula, el espejo quebrado, heredé la trágica historia de mi madre. My next poem has a quote from a Puerto Rican poet that I consider my friend, Vanessa Dross, in English. They are disasters that, like living songs, create unerasable scars. In English, the name of the poem is Unerasable. En español, Imborrable. Con esta cicatriz me conociste, cremallera abierta en los pliegues de mi piel desabrochada. Desde la primera noche de espejos, exhibí sin pudor los pespuntes surcidos con una soga moribunda. Mi cuerpo es un vestido deshilachado, con botones a punto de reventar. De la antigua cubierta de larva, donde la polilla se anida y alimenta. Soy sobreviviente de la peor guerra. Las medallas no relucen en mis hombros abatidos. No existe compasión para una mujer en su trinchera, avergonzada del olor nauseabundo de la derrota. Así me conociste. Defectuosa muñeca que orina cuando le alan la cuerda de hablar. Creación imperfecta desde fábrica. Tornillos sueltos, piezas gastadas, instrucciones de montaje incompletas. Con esta cicatriz que hiciste tu fetiche, deidad que idolatrabas en el lecho, tu obra de caridad de buen samaritano. Yo, damisela en apuros, tú, Superman al rescate. Ahora deseas borrar su existencia, cambiar la herida a carcajada, maquillar de carnaval su palidez suicida. Pero esta cicatriz, lunar congénito, mancha de plátano que el fierro colonial marcó sin compasión en pecho isleño, no tiene cura. No hay quien le estirpe. Los remedios multiplican sus puntadas. Ama mi cicatriz. Descubre en su fealdad la geografía perfecta donde el llanto se hace coordenadas con la risa. En su estuche quebrado guardo alas de mariposas muertas. Con esta cicatriz me conociste. Acepta su inmortalidad o emigra a otra piel tersa. And I'm going to finish with the poem Palabra Pura. It was an honor for, I can't believe it's 25 years. I was the MC for the first, I don't know how many years. And it was a great experience. Thanks to the Guild Complex to inviting me for the Poetry Foundation here to do this celebration of Palabra Pura, a place for Latinos and other poets to join either in Spanish or English. In my case, it was almost always in Spanish, so I was very grateful. I want to have a toast for the Guild Complex Palabra Pura. And I'm going to read a poem that I wrote named Palabra Pura. Apalear la palabra, castigar su silencio, que escuche el látigo abriendo caminos en sus letras, que sienta el puño rompiendo el mutismo en sus entrañas. Enseñarla a respetar la mano que traza, la boca que la libera del pensamiento, lastimar su ego, hacerla sentir menos que los ojos que hablan sin palabras. Apalear la palabra, enterrar la pala hasta donde se ata la tierra y la raíz, penetrarla hasta el fondo, bien adentro hasta que duela, para que grite, aúlle, clame, ladre, hasta que por fin sea sincera y alcance su libertad. Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Wonderful to be joined up with you at this end of our Palabra Pura celebration. The work was amazing, and what a tribute to the spirit of Palabra Pura to hear everyone's words tonight. So it was just beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to start out by throwing out a question about Palabra Pura, what it has meant to the different poets who read tonight, and in particular, thinking about the other cultural spaces that you inhabit. How does Palabra Pura either complement those other spaces or contrast with it? And I don't know if Brenda, if you'd be willing to speak to that first, and then everybody else can jump in.
Well, boy, I remember I was there when it began. I think I might have read in the first one or the second one. It was like the very beginning. And when I was in Chicago, I used to attend, and it sadly haven't attended since I've been gone to Milwaukee. But what I loved about it was that it was really very inclusive, because poets came from all different walks of life and backgrounds, and I don't only mean ethnic backgrounds, but it wasn't all academic poets, right? It wasn't all, there's so many genres of poetry, right? And so many kinds of poetry. And I think in Palabra Pura, you could be writing, people were writing different kinds of poems, so some people were doing more spoken word kind of work. Some people were doing, lyric poems, right? Some people, and then the two languages, right? That one, especially that people who write in Spanish didn't feel like they had to read translations in English, that they could just read their poems as they'd written them, Mm-hmm. And for poets, like I often have written in a mix of the two languages, in that sort of Inglañol or Spanglish or whatever you want to call it. And so same thing, I could do that and know that I mostly had a bilingual audience who would be able to flow with me back and forth between the languages. So yeah, I think it's a really special and important gift to Chicago.
One of the things I most am maybe most fond of, especially in the early years, and I don't remember whose idea it was. It may have been Mike's idea or Ellen's idea, but before every reading, we always had a pre-reading dinner so that the out-of-town poet could break bread with the local poet. And then I think Ellen would typically invite one or two local people, whether it be artists or others, so that the visiting poet was not just parachuting in, giving his or her reading and then leaving. They had a chance to break bread with the local poet and a few others before the reading was established. And I also loved that the readings took place not in some sort of university auditorium, but either the California Clipper, or what was the name? It was a Decima Musa, I think was the name of the restaurant in the back room. So that was one of the things I really enjoyed about it.
I talk? I have a lot to say. Well, for me, I mean, since I was an MC, it meant a lot to me. I also saw through the years in Chicago more and more stuff happening in Spanish or for Latinos, was one of the the magazines in Spanish, theater in Spanish, like Aguijón Theater, and then to have these bilingual readings was very important. As an MC, I was very lucky to meet all these amazing writers that were coming every month. Talking about the places, the 3 places that I was the MC, they all have a different vibe. The California Clipper, which has that huge painting of a naked woman in the back. Decimamusa, which have that vibe of the Sor Juana Mexican kind of vibe, and then La Bruquena, which is where we have it now, which is a Puerto Rican thing. So we move in different areas, which I think is great because maybe attract a different public. The other thing, for the experiences that I have, I remember the special guests that I was able to introduce. I remember when Victor Hernandez Cruz was at the Hot House, and then after the event, he was hungry, actually. So I took him, my husband, to go out to eat, and we couldn't find a place open. So we finished in one of those Mexican 24-hour kind of taco places. We can always count in Chicago, with the 24-hour open Mexican restaurants. And also Rigoberto Gonzalez, when I met him, which he was at the center with Lorna D. Cervantes. So Rigoberto was the judge that picked my manuscript for the past poetry prize. So that I don't think he even remembers me that well back then, because I only introduced him. We didn't get to talk that much, but I truly remember him and Lorna D. Cervantes and these amazing people that I got to, Juan Felipe Herrera. I don't know, there were just so many. So for me that I write in Spanish, most of the time, Palabra Pura especially meant a lot to me, because it was difficult for someone like me to go to other open mics and participate, since then I will have to bring translations, So that's what I was doing most of the time. I was writing my poems in Spanish, but then I was forced to translate it if I wanted to participate in any other events. And then the fact that in Palabra Pura, I could read my original work really meant a lot to me, that I could invite Spanish speakers to do this kind of event. One of the things that Chicago has the best is the cultural events, and this is one of them.
Yes, if I can say something about Palabra Pura. But first, I would like to thank you all for organizing this event for over 15 years now. So one of the things that I remember about Palabra Pura, its inclusivity. I remember being kind of like a new person in Chicago, trying to fit here and there. And I remember a poet, this writer from Chicago, inviting me to be the featured poet at Palabra Pura. And then I read that it was organized by the Guild complex. And that was kind of new to me, because I was so used to see these type of events being organized by Hispanic or Latin American institutions or organizations. So it was kind of cool to me. And yeah, I was featured at Palabra Pura, but I remember not a lot of people was at that event. And I thought myself, well, it's just one of those places where you go and nobody knows what happens after that. But shortly after, the Guild complex was celebrating Palabra Pura's, I'm not sure which anniversary, probably the 10th anniversary. And a friend of mine, a writer, a novelist, she told me, you have to be there because they're putting together an anthology, and you were featured at Palabra Pura, and I was maybe I don't know what to do. So I was being contacted with Miguel Lopez, and I got invited to the event, and I've been good friends with all the people that goes to Palabra Pura ever since, and that's beautiful. And it doesn't have comparison though, because I haven't really seen events like Palabra Pura that last for so many years.
It's interesting because I've been to, maybe like 90%, 95% of the readings over the years, something like that. And what I learned was it would always be unpredictable. I wouldn't know if it was going to be a night that, 10 people came or 40 people came, or whether, what languages we were going to hear, but there would be in every reading, even the ones with only a few people present, I always felt like there was a moment when things just kind of gel and you're like, whoa, this is unique for this evening and this place. What's happening here isn't happening anywhere else, and I'll never see it like this again, even at Palabra Pura. And that's definitely something that I've really appreciated about it over the years. So let me also ask, within your own work now, with having the access to 2 languages or more, and then living in this country where there are different attitudes towards people that have access towards 2 languages or more, how do you feel as poets, as writers? What happens for you, or for you, what is the importance of having the access to those languages and being able to express what you have to say in English or Spanish or however you want to do that in the context of living here?
I personally think it creates community, and there's this coexistence between communities, and that's the most interesting thing to me. And to being able to share poems in Spanish with poets that appreciate poetry in Spanish, but they write in English, it's amazing. And once again, I really admire the duration of this Palabra Pura thing. It's been going on for 15 years, and it's really amazing.
I think having access to as a writer, as a poet, having access to multiple languages, it just like expands your toolbox. You know what I mean? As poets, we're using all these techniques that, that some of our readers may be aware of and some may not be, but where, any poet, right, is thinking about sound, right? La música de la lengua, right? And that sound is so important to poetry. So we're using things like alliteration and assonance and, thinking about all of that along with whatever meaning we're making. And when you have multiple languages, and you can play with like an interlingual rhyme, right? And you just have, even more at your disposal, right? To use when it comes to those techniques or tools or whatever you want to call them.
I'll add my contribution to this question is that being a curator for Palabra Pura offered me the opportunity to meet people like Johanny, to come into contact with organizations like Contratiempo. And it really forced me to acknowledge and appreciate and value what a rich, underappreciated tradition there is of poetry written in Spanish in the US. I was aware of it, but perhaps I would admit that I wasn't as aware or appreciative of it as I should have been. And I say this as someone who had lived in Spain for 10 years and majored in Spanish literature and was completely bilingual. But certainly the opportunity of being affiliated with Palabra Pura put me into contact. I'm thinking especially of Contratiempo. I remember just really appreciating the literary supplement that Contratiempo always published every however often they would come up. And I also say that Ellen was really good about inviting stakeholders to weigh in, people like Palabra Pura. And so Palabra Pura as a series was sort of my training ground, because I began to curate in 2004, and it was shortly after that I got in touch with Mary and Mike and Ellen. So that's my contribution, that it really made me acknowledge how rich our tradition is, even though it's underappreciated, in my view, of poetry written in Spanish in the US.
I mean, for me, to write in Spanish is a political statement, actually. It's something, I know it would be easier for me living in the United States to write in English. You know, actually an agent told me once, oh no, you have to write in English if you want to have any books here or anything happening here. So, but I think, you know, I'm from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. And I think Spanish has been part of this country. You know, half of the United States used to be Mexico, so Spanish was there. There's always going to be Spanish speaker. And I don't know why so many people have this fear, or I don't know what to call it, about learning other languages in here, about English only because we live here. No, the world we should learn many languages. It shouldn't be like, no, you know, here we only speak here and this language, and that's the way, you know, when Americans move to Puerto Rico, they keep speaking in English. Most of them only learn a few words in Spanish. So I think I really, really promote this. And to tell you, it's hard. It's hard because there are no many places. There are no many open mics that you can do it. So I always, every English speaker open mic that I participated, I always will read something in Spanish. And people will say, oh, I enjoy, even though I didn't understand anything, because I always will tell me, you should learn Spanish. You should learn other language. We shouldn't be afraid. In fact, we should love the fact, like me, that I can understand two things. And sometimes I don't even know, you know, when it switches, I like it. I don't, oh, now they're in Spanish. Oh, now they're in, when you know both languages, it's like, oh, you understand everything. And the world is so much nicer, you know. But it's a challenge. For me, it's a challenge, you know, to get published, to participate in things. And I was very happy when I find the passport. I couldn't believe it. Wait a minute, there's a contest here about in Spanish, you know, right? That you write in Spanish for people that live, you know, I couldn't believe it. Like, yeah, you know, so there should be more. There should be more because we're here. And every time, you know, when I moved to Chicago, I think there was a few of us, and I think more and more and more writers, good writers, that are coming to the Midwest that write in Spanish. I see them more and more anthologies, you know, and I mean, many people read Pablo Neruda in their translations, so why not? You have to read me like that too if you want to really take advantage of what I say. I don't know.
There is actually another book prize, the Ambrosio Prize.
Ambrosio, yes.
So we now have 2 national book prizes for poetry in Spanish.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I know. But with the Ambrosio, you have to send your translations. And then with the passport, you know, someone will translate it for you. So, you know, they take care of that.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I wish that we could be, face to face in one place and we could all have a drink together afterwards. Joanny, I loved it that you toasted to Palabra Pura. So we do hope to be able to come back with live Palabra Pura events sometime this year. But in the meantime, I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank our audience for being here. And I will turn things back over to Alex. And I want to especially thank the Poetry Foundation for making this possible. And just a quick shout out to La Bruquena, the restaurant that is our home now, in the hope that we will be back there very soon. But now over to Alex, and thank you.
Oh, Mary, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody. Time passes so quickly when we're having these good discussions. I wish we could stay for another couple hours, but for tonight, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming to this celebration. Let's all take a moment to give some virtual claps and virtual snaps to all of our readers from tonight. Thank you so much for sharing so much awesome work with us. If you are interested, you can check out poetryfoundation.org/events for more Poetry Foundation events. You can also head to the Guild Literary Complex website for more upcoming events and other programming that they have on offer. That is all I have. Thank you again so much to everybody, and I hope you have a safe and warm, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, evening and rest of the season. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Adios.
Adios.
Bye. Thank you. Adios. Ciao.